Woman Jika, and welcome to this evening's panel discussion on Science Reimagined. My name is Professor Mark Osborne. I'm the Associate Dean of Student Experience for the School of Science in RMIT STEM College, otherwise known as Science, Technology, Engineering and Maths. Before I go any further, what I'd like to do is to start with an acknowledgement of country. I'm currently on the land of the Bunurong people down in the southeast of Melbourne, and as is traditional at RMIT, what we'd like to do is to pay our respects to the peoples of the traditional owners of the land. So with this in mind, I would like to, on behalf of RMIT University, acknowledge the peoples of the Woiwurrung and the Boonwurrung language groups of the Eastern Kulin Nation, on whose unceded lands we conduct the business of our university. On behalf of RMIT University, I respectfully acknowledge their ancestors and elders, past and present and emerging. And on behalf of RMIT University, I also acknowledge the traditional custodians and their ancestors of the lands and waters across Australia where we conduct our business. How many times over the last 18 months have you heard the phrase, trust the science? Well, that's because science allows us to address global challenges like COVID-19 and climate change, which we're currently facing, solve practical problems, and also make informed decisions, both as individuals and as communities, and indeed as countries. What we've been doing here at RMIT is considering how we can further improve and extend and transform our science degrees. So what we've been doing is reimagining our science degrees to ensure that when you, as future students, graduate from RMIT, you're more prepared for a career in science than you've ever been before. Today, we're going to explore these changes and explain how they will benefit you should you choose to join us at RMIT. Before we get into it, though, what I'd like to do is to introduce you to the members of our panel today. Each of our three panelists is a program manager for one of our three science degrees, which we're offering at RMIT. I'd firstly like to introduce Sylvia Urban. Sylvia, can you just briefly introduce yourself and your role?
Hi, everyone. So I'm Associate Professor Sylvia Urban, and I'm the program manager for the Bachelor of Science degree.
Thank you very much, Sylvia. I'd next like to introduce Peter Davis. Peter.
I'm Professor Peter Davis in the physics discipline, and I'm the program manager for the Dean Scholar program.
Thank you, Peter. And last but not least, Daniel Gomez.
Hi, my name is Daniel Gomez. I am the program manager for the Science and Business double degree.
Thank you, Daniel. And we'll be hearing a lot more from Sylvia and Peter and Daniel through this session. They'll be learning also about the degree programs for which they're the managers of. Just before we start, what I'd like to remind all of our viewers here who are online today is that we'll have 15 minutes at the end to allow you to go over any questions from the audience in relation to things you'd like to know about our science degree programs at RMIT. You can submit those questions in the question and answer tool on the right at any time, and we'll do our best to answer as many as possible at the end of this session. Now, what I'd like to do now is to introduce Science Reimagined. So what is Science Reimagined? What we're going to do is we're going to run through a short presentation first. So Science Reimagined is what we've been doing is taking a long, hard look about what our science students will be needing in their future careers. We've been discussing these needs with industry. We've been exploring how industry looks at recruiting scientists and trying to identify how they can ensure that the scientists that they're recruiting from undergraduate degrees are able to enter the workplace successfully and be really successful through these programs. With that in mind, what we've been doing is to develop science degree programs which will allow us to very much improve the skills capabilities of our students. So with this in mind, we have been looking particularly at our first year programs, and what we're doing is introducing changes to our three science degree programs, which are the BP229 science program, which is our Bachelor of Science. We're also looking at the BP305 Bachelor of Science program, Bachelor of Science in Business Management, and thirdly, in relation to the Bachelor of Science Dean Scholars Honours program. Just so I can confirm, I can now see the slides, which will make this presentation a lot more seamless than it is without having those slides in front of you. So what we've been doing is to be introducing this transformation of our science degree programs, which will be launching in 2022. What I'd like to do now is to take you through some of those key changes. Next slide, please. So what Science Reimagined is about is it's providing a transformative learning experience for you. What we're looking to do is to help you develop and learn and explore those key core science concepts, which are going to be so important across the breadth of science. So we're going to be introducing you to the key aspects of the physical sciences, of physics and chemistry, and also geospatial sciences. And we're going to be exploring also key aspects of the life sciences within biosciences, food technology, and also environmental sciences. When we're considering science, we also are very, very aware that we need to be ensuring that students will have key skills in data analysis, data interpretation, and also the underpinning mathematical sciences. So we're going to be giving you the opportunity to be developing those skills as you progress through your degrees, and also be looking to be developing and strengthening the transferable skills that industry are so keen on having for their future employees. These will be things like communication skills, and it will also be the ability of working in teams. So what we've been doing at RMIT is developing these new skills to allow our students to be successful in their future careers, and also be successful as they progress from the first year through into the second and third year as well. Next slide, please. So the structure of our new year one programs for Science Reimagined is as follows. In the first semester, all of our science students across these three degree programs will be taking 4 core courses. As I've stressed already, these are really focusing on the key disciplinary areas within science across physical sciences, physics, chemistry, and geospatial, and then also exploring the world of life sciences, where we're going to be looking in particular at biosciences and also food and environmental sciences. You'll be learning about these topics within the context of key global challenges. So we're going to be contextualizing the importance of each of those individual disciplines, and also importantly, giving students from different disciplines the opportunity to work across disciplines and also gain from the experience of students who have interest in other areas. So in that way, we'll have biologists who are working in concert with physicists, geospatial scientists who are working in concert with environmental scientists. And industry tells us that one of the key areas which they're looking for is the ability for students to make those connections between disciplinary areas. So very often when we were students, we were actually being taught within individual areas, and those areas were very, very defined. But it takes time to develop the skills for how you can communicate and understand people who come from different perspectives. So our Science Reimagined is very much focusing on driving those skills of both introducing students to a whole breadth of science, but at the same time giving them the opportunity to explore that from different perspectives and see the points of view, the different points of view of other disciplinary areas. Now, in conjunction with this, we also very much understand, and again from our discussions with industry, we recognise that we are increasingly in a data-rich world. And what our industry is looking for are students who are able to survive in that world and indeed thrive and understand and utilise data in an environment where we're increasingly using big data and also moving towards an environment where we're looking at artificial intelligence. So again, in semester 1, we'll be supporting students to be developing those skills about understanding what data is, also critiquing data and analysing data. And at the same time, supporting students to have the key toolbox to allow them to take mathematical analysis. Increasingly in science, all areas of science will have a focus on mathematics, and we see it, and indeed industry sees it, as critically important for our students to have those key underpinning mathematical skills. So across those 4 courses, you're going to be introduced to the key disciplinary areas of science, and we're also going to be building and embedding those key skills for data analysis and maths, and then taking that further to explore communication skills and other transferable skills as well. Then in semester 2, what we're looking to do is then focus down onto the disciplinary areas. So in the BP229 and the BP305 and the BH101 degrees, which we're talking about today, we're going to give you the opportunity to be focusing on your own disciplinary areas, so that physics students will be focusing on courses specific to physics, bioscientists will be focusing in areas in relation to bioscience, chemists in relation to courses on chemistry. And then in semester 2, students will also be taking two of our new courses which are offered across the entire STEM college. STEM, just to remind you, is science, technology, engineering and maths, but we also interpret this to also be meaning medicine and health as well there. And in this context, what we're doing is launching 2 new courses which are going to be taken by all of our students across the STEM college. And again, this gives you an opportunity to see perspectives from different areas, so that scientists have the opportunity to be learning from health scientists. Environmental scientists will have the opportunity to be learning from computer scientists. And what we're looking to do is to provide an environment where students can collaborate on key major global issues as we move forward. So one of these courses is focusing on sustainable development and the importance which we see of sustainable development across everything in society today, where we need to be addressing the challenges of climate change. We need to be addressing the challenges in relation to poverty. We need to be providing a more equitable environment in which everyone has real opportunity. That includes in relation to providing education. At the same time, we're also recognizing that some of the drivers to allow us to become more sustainable are embedded, for example, within the computing fields. And increasingly, of course, we're seeing the significance of computing, but also of artificial intelligence in driving some of these changes as we move forward. So in your first year, you'll be taking these 2 platform courses, which will be providing you with a wider context and understanding and appreciation of some of the key approaches which we can be using to address many of these global challenges as we move forward. Next slide, please. So just to recap in relation to the key features of Science Reimagined, what we're going to be doing is really introducing you and launching you on your scientific careers. So we're going to be taking you through an approach where you can become a scientist. And we're going to be taking you on that transition and giving you the skills and the attributes and that support you in developing the understanding of the key disciplinary areas and also the key skills which will allow you to be successful in your career. We're calling this becoming a scientist. In addition, you're going to be developing that breadth of understanding across both science and maths disciplines, so you can appreciate the breadth of science, but also see the different points of view of the chemists or biologists or physicists or geospatial scientists will offer to the wider discipline of science. At RMIT, we're extremely proud of our ability to provide you with key practical skills, which will be you'll then be able to be translating and using in your future careers. So there's a major emphasis in relation to giving you experiential learning, which will support your development of these key practical skills. And you'll have an opportunity later on in this session to see more of the facilities which we have at RMIT. As I've stressed, we want to be helping you develop your expertise in data handling and mathematical analysis, and importantly, giving you the opportunities to acquire skills which will set you up for your career. Again, from industry, we are very much hearing from them that they want students who are able to work in teams and work effectively within teams and in different roles, sometimes as team players, sometimes as leaders. And we're going to be giving you opportunities through your career at RMIT to allow you to develop those skills. What we're also doing with the Science Reimagined is making the science which we're introducing you to relevant to the key global challenges which we are facing as society and for our environment. So we'll be contextualizing those concepts and those skills within the context of climate change, the current pandemic, of course, which we're now facing in relation to COVID-19, energy, and also food security. And one final point I'd really like to stress in relation to our Science Reimagined degree programs is that we recognise at RMIT the incredible importance of diversity and inclusion and equity and reconciliation as a university. And we see the value of bringing people in from diverse backgrounds backgrounds, who have diverse expertise, and also different perspectives in life. So we're going to be helping to support you to improve your understanding and appreciation of the critical importance of these factors within our science and mathematics degrees, and allow you then to see both the value but also gain from that value. And we're also very, very keen within this context to be encouraging prospective students who come from diverse backgrounds. We want to have a society and a community at RMIT which provides an opportunity for anyone to be doing science and mathematics. Okay, I'll now hand you over to Sylvia, who's going to be telling you a little bit about the BP 229 program. Sylvia.
Hi again. So yes, I'm going to be talking about what is our largest degree or program, as we call them, at RMIT, which is the Bachelor of Science, a very, very popular program. It is a 3-year program and you will complete 24 courses over 6 semesters. So at the end, we're looking at you completing 288 credit points in order to obtain your degree. And in the Bachelor of Science, we have 4 plans of study, and we have little codes for them. BP 229, as you can see, they just change at the end by, they're called P7 or APCH, BISC, and PHYS. That means we actually have a major in applied chemistry, 1 in biological sciences, and 1 in physics, and 1 is the P7 is the general science program. As you can imagine, that one allows for the greatest flexibility. So yeah, I did want to emphasise that you can obtain a major. That means if you follow that particular plan, you'll have a testamar at the end when you graduate with Bachelor of Science and, for example, in brackets, applied chemistry, to show that you've majored in that area. This particular degree at RMIT allows for some flexibility in terms of science and university elective options. We're very proud also that the chemistry and physics majors have external accreditation and therefore industry links with the Royal Australian Chemical Institute and the Australian Institute of Physics. For the biological sciences, students can join the Australian Society for Microbiology or the Australian Biomedical Society. Now, this program will allow you to prepare for a career in science-based organisations and fields. So it's a very general program, as you can imagine, and I'll talk later a little bit about more about science. Thanks.
Thank you very much, Sylvia. Peter, can I hand over to you to outline what's so special about our Dean Scholar degree programme?
So in the Dean Scholar program, it's a 4-year program with an embedded honours year. That means that you don't have to apply again to get into honours. It's intended for highly capable and motivated students who are research oriented. And we have program plans for biology, biotechnology, chemistry, computer science, food science, geospatial science, applied maths and stats, physics and environmental science. The distinctive thing about this program is that while most of the courses you do are the same as what other students will be doing in your underlying program, you'll also be doing 2 mentored research placement courses, one of them in 2nd semester of year 2 and the other one in the 1st semester of year 3. And that's where you work in the research group of an experienced researcher who will mentor you through the process. So that means that, in fact, you'll have a research activity in every semester from semester 2 of year 2 all the way to the end of your 4th year. You can enter the program via VTAC entry, and next year that'll just be for biology, biotech, chemistry and physics. Or for students in the other disciplines, you can transfer after year 1, as long as you have a GPA of at least 3.5 out of 4. And of course, students in those in the biology, biotech, chemistry and physics disciplines can also transfer after year 1 if they satisfy that requirement. So the idea of the program is that it acts as a pathway into higher degree programs for students who get first class honours, or H2A, which is upper second class honours.
Thank you very much, Peter. And finally, Daniel, can you tell us about the Bachelor of Science Business Management double degree?
For sure. So in this double degree, it takes completion takes about 4 years. And this program, in addition to showing you what Peter and Sylvia have already spoken about in terms of science, you will also study business in terms of marketing, organizational behavior, and accounting. So this will provide you with a very sort of a broad breadth of knowledge that will allow you to be a scientist that could transition into a management role. Like in the other programs, in BP 305 or this double degree, you can also specialize in biology, biotechnology, chemistry, and physics. And so in that way, you study specifically a discipline of science. Unlike the program that Sylvia described, the Bachelor of Science and Business Management, it doesn't offer a lot of flexibility in terms of the number of electives that you can choose from. And this is because the number of subjects being a double degree, it's a somewhat more comprehensive than the other degrees.
Thank you very much, Daniel. What I'd like to do now is to take the opportunity to ask the 3 panel members of our program managers a little bit more about their degree programs, so we can explore the key features of those degree programs in a little bit more detail. So I'd like to start with a question which I'll introduce to each of the panel members. I'd like to first of all say, what do you see as the key attributes and skills which you think students are going to need for their future careers in science? Sylvia, could I start with you?
Sure. Well, I've thought about this, and obviously there's the discipline-focused skills in having your theoretical knowledge in a particular area, be it, let's say, chemistry, as well as the practical capability. I have to say I'm a former RMIT graduate, and we've always been known for and valued for our hands-on experience with instrumentation, I have to say, for instance, in chemistry. But undoubtedly, I think the future lies with our soft and transferable skills. I think these are extremely important. You need to be, at the end of the day, when you walk in for an interview, once you finish your degree, you have to be an effective communicator. This means both in a written as well as a verbal communication sense. You also need to be able to understand data. How do you interpret it? How do you best present it? Being able to problem solve and troubleshoot. Mark mentioned being able to work independently, but equally important is your ability to work as part of a team. I'd like to draw your attention to an example here. One of the greatest scientific discoveries was made by a team. Just think of the important discovery of penicillin. Everybody knows about that discovery. This was made by a team, Fleming, Chain, and of course our own Australian Florey. Being confident and well articulated, being an influencer and promoter, and standing out from the crowd. So these are just some things I've thought about.
Thank you very much, Sylvia. Daniel, what are your thoughts in relation to what you see as the key attributes and skills that you see our future science students needing to be successful in their future careers?
So having been a research scientist at CSIRO, I think that one of the most important sort of attributes is the ability to problem solve. So getting these generic skills in science and will give you a unique perspective on how to address and solve a problem. So one of the key attributes of being a scientist is the capacity of doing analysis and quantifying the outcomes of whatever approach you take on. And this is invaluable not only in science, but also I have friends who have moved onto finance, being from a physics background, and in that capacity in the finance market, they can use physical models to predict and sort of understand the flow of stock market and provide advice for industry on how to best sort of invest their funds. So
Thank you.
Sorry?
So thank you, Daniel. Could you perhaps give us an indication of or an example of the sorts of problem-based learning which students are doing within your area?
For sure. In particular, I am a chemist. I work for the applied chemistry sort of discipline at RMIT, and one of the problem-based teaching that we do at RMIT, the one that I teach is in nanotechnology. So nanotechnology is a very broad field. And we ask the students to use their base knowledge in physics and chemistry to come up with solutions for, say, for example, to discover new solar cells or to transform incident solar energy into chemical fuels, which is a topic of current importance, in particular due to climate change.
Thank you very much, Daniel. I think once again that's exemplifying how the pure sciences are just so important in our real world in terms of providing solutions which are going to be of value to us for tackling grand challenges such as climate change and energy security. Peter, just returning to the question I asked, what would you see as those key attributes and skills which you feel students need for their future careers in science?
So from my point of view as the program manager for the Dean Scholar program, because it includes an embedded honours year, there are additional things that are emphasised in that final year. One of them is the ability to plan a research project, to do the literature review, to understand what's in the literature and comprehensively review it. Another one is to develop the understanding of occupational health and safety so that you can carry out your research safely and ethically. Another one is to understand the background to your research project and then to plan and carry it out successfully, write it up as a thesis and also present it as a seminar and possibly as a poster as well. So it's not only important to be able to do the research, but also to understand its context and also to present it to others, not only to your peers who may understand all of the technical details, but also to the general public who may not understand it as well as you do. You've got to be able to communicate the importance of it to others.
Thank you very much, Peter. We've clearly got people in the audience today who will be considering the different individual pathways in science. Some students at this stage may not be sure that they want to commit to a Dean Scholars program, but we will also perhaps be having students who will want to perhaps see what science opportunities there are from perhaps joining the BP229 program. You mentioned earlier the opportunities to potentially transfer from the Bachelor of Science into the Dean Scholar program. Peter, could you tell us a little bit more about about what's involved in transfer?
Yeah, so not everybody has a very successful VCE year, and you might not satisfy the entry requirement initially to get into the Dean Scholar program, but some students do really well in their first year and they take to university education really well. And for those students who have a successful first year, we often find that they are the most likely to succeed all the way through their program. So we're very happy to take those students into the Dean Scholar program. And what we do is we invite students with a high GPA to come along to an information session where we talk about the Dean Scholar program. Now, that program is not necessarily right for everybody because some students are high performing, but they may not wish to go into a research career. That's fine. They can stay in their degree that they are currently in.
Thank you, Peter. And you mentioned within the discussion of the Dean Scholar program the opportunities which exist for getting a taste and experience of research, potentially enabling you to then go on to do higher degrees. Could you perhaps tell us a little bit about the sorts of projects which are available to students as they progress within the Dean Scholar program, or indeed within the honours year, which is the final year of these programs?
Yeah, I'd be happy to talk about that. I've currently got a Dean Scholar program working with me on a project where we're trying to predict the microstructure of a copolymer material, a polyurethane, in order to predict its acoustic properties. This student's doing a very simple project for the Dean Scholar students since they're only in second or third year. We have to choose a project that's appropriate, but it still can lead into a more sophisticated project later.
Thank you very much, Peter. I'm going to turn to Sylvia again now, and we've been hearing already that Daniel was saying he's a chemist and Peter is a physicist. Sylvia, can you give us a little bit about an idea of your own area of expertise, and perhaps tell us a little bit about how you went from being a student at RMIT through to what you're doing now and your own research interests?
Oh, sure. Okay. Well, I'll start from the end. I guess that is my expertise lies in chemistry again, another chemist, but specifically in natural product drug discovery. And I look at Australian plants, for instance, and marine organisms, invertebrates actually. So, for instance, sponges and seaweeds. So in the drug discovery area, looking for new chemicals. So it's a very exciting area to be working in. And I would be classified as an organic analytical chemist. So a lot of analysis involved in what I do. Yeah, so a long time ago, I was an RMIT student who specifically studied an applied chemistry degree. And then I embarked on an honours and PhD at the University of Melbourne. And also then after that, I embarked on postdoctoral fellow positions in Griffith University, as well as the University of Canterbury in Christchurch, New Zealand, and then returning back to RMIT and taking up quite a junior role and worked myself all the way up many years later. I have to say I would have never predicted I would be an academic, so that's a take-home lesson for everybody. It's one of the things I want to actually say is that you never know what career pathway you're going to actually take. Also, I feel I'm a very passionate educator, wanting to provide our students with an engaging and memorable higher education training experience. So I constantly try to implement new teaching approaches in everything I do. So that's a little bit about me.
Thank you very much, Sylvia. You talked about studying for a degree at RMIT. I'm always thinking back in relation to what I would have done differently if I'd been a student again. Perhaps you could tell us, what advice would you give to your younger self if you was embarking on studies at RMIT University now?
I guess I've already said the first one, and that is, look, I never knew what path I was going to take. I was very much interested in being a researcher for sure. So just the sky's the limit. You just don't know what you're going to end up doing. It may or may not be in science, even if you complete a Bachelor of Science. So I'm going to say, look, have the courage to be able to pivot and navigate that. Many of the jobs of the future in science don't even exist yet, and many will actually change. So this is why I think your soft skills and your ability to draw on your higher education training is actually invaluable to you. Put yourself forward for all opportunities that come your way and actually go out and seek others. One of the things I did as a student was I volunteered at Science Works. So volunteer and get your foot in the door. You know, there's a saying that goes around, it's not what you know, but who you know. So make as many connections as possible. And that could be with your academics or it could be with your fellow students. You just don't know.
Thank you very much, Sylvia. I'm very aware that you were talking about opportunities which science can give you to go and work in other countries, and you talked about the opportunities to go and work in New Zealand. As those of you in the audience have probably gathered, I'm from England originally, and again, science has been a passport to travel around the world. It's given me opportunities to explore Arctic ecosystems, doing field work, to go and work in Germany in a biotechnology research organisation, and then probably most exciting to me now to the opportunity to come and move to Australia to be an academic in RMIT. So I really want to encourage you within the context of your future careers to see science as opening a door to such future opportunities. And it's great to hear the examples which Sylvia is talking about in relation to her own career, and also I think importantly giving the opportunity to think about how you can make that happen, that importance in relation to being able to network, for example, and build those both those friendships amongst the peers which of your fellow students, but also be willing to go out and try things in the wider world and work, for example, as volunteers for environmental groups, for example, or to gain experience in industry. The world really is your opportunity, and I appreciate whilst we're sitting in COVID, that may not feel at that stage. But as you join RMIT, we'll be encouraging you to try and take these pathways, challenging you to move forward in relation to this space. And hopefully you'll be able to build something which is going to be an incredibly satisfying career for you as you move forward. With that in mind, I'd like to now turn to a question to Daniel in relation to the wider opportunities that the double degree offers. So Daniel, could you tell us a little bit about the additional opportunities which doing a double degree in science and business would offer you? And also, can you talk a little about some of the science-based organisations where our graduates are going to?
So in terms of the last part of your question, some of these organizations include the CSIRO, CSL, and pharmaceutical companies and other kinds of startups companies. Within these large or small organizations, the advantage that you would have coming from with a double degree is that it will allow you to move on the management of the organization, where you can perform management as for example, the chief financial officer, or you could manage a team of other scientists to deliver projects on time and importantly on budget as well. So this sort of well-rounded education provides you with the point of view from a scientist, or also keeping that mindset of keeping a team functioning within the project goals and also the project budget as well.
Thank you very much, Daniel. What I'd like to do now is to give you an opportunity to see from one of our students the facilities which we have and you'd have access to if you join RMIT and come to RMIT. We're really proud of our world-class facilities, and what we'd like to do now is to play a short video which is going to feature one of our students showcasing some of these facilities.
Hi everyone, I'm Charlotte, and today I'm going to show you some of RMIT's amazing science facilities. With 9 different fields to study, you are bound to find a field that suits you. And if you're not quite sure what you want to study with RMIT, we offer specialized and flexible science courses to help you discover what you are passionate about. Now let's start our tour with the Center of Nanoscale Biophotonics, or CNB for short. Here we are in our impressive Center for Nanoscale Biophotonics, where quantum physics meet biology and chemistry. But let's meet our RMIT science student Daniel, who can explain that further.
The team here at RMIT uses the power of light to look into the body and see how cells behave with one another. We do that using interesting and important lasers. What we have here is an optical benchtop microscope, which is one of a handful in the world. This allows us to image deeper into cells and look into the body. This is one of the world-class research facilities we have here at RMIT University.
Yeah, it looks amazing. Thank you so much, Daniel, for showing us. Now let's move on to our world-class chemistry labs. Our chemistry students have access to advanced instruments to analyze samples and to learn more about the properties of materials. Jonathan here can tell us more about the space.
Yeah, so in this lab, second and third year organic chemistry students will look at replicating experiments that are used in industrial processes for green technologies, as well as looking at the properties of water to look at its purity.
We're now here at RMIT's Work Experiences Lab, where students get to see chemistry and nanotechnology in action using augmented reality. Pat, please explain us what's going on.
Well, the high-resolution screens behind us allow us to visualize molecules and nanomaterials in 3D. We've actually got Kevin over here building a molecule at the moment in augmented reality.
That is so cool. Can I have a try?
Sure thing. Let's give it a go.
Let's head to our Observatory campus to show you more of our amazing science facilities. Now we are in our Food Innovation and Research Center. Our future food technologists develop nutritious, safe, and innovative food for consumers and learn how to comply to the strict industry safety and health regulations. Billy, tell me, is that what is smelling so delicious here?
Yes, so we've made some products today. So we made a bread and also 2 types of cakes, one with butter and also one with margarine. Besides this commercial that we've got here, we've also got the pilot plant and also a research lab, and we've got a sensory lab where we look at the sensory profile of our products. Speaking of the sensory lab, we're going to take these products in there and we're going to taste them.
Amazing, can't wait. Now we arrived at our state-of-the-art bioscience teaching labs. Charlene, show me on the screen, what is that funky thing?
I'm so pleased you asked. What we're looking at are plant cells under a fluorescent microscope. Here in the Biosciences Teaching Lab, we teach a range of sciences, from botany through to cell biology, clinical microbiology, and animal physiology and ecology. Here in these labs, this is where we teach our students how to do real-world experiments, and we give them the skills they need to explore cells and life.
Amazing, sounds really cool. Thank you for showing us. Here we are at one of my favorite spots at RMIT, the Robotic Optical Observatory telescope, which was actually set up with 2 US universities. Have a look inside. The 16-inch telescope here can track asteroids, satellites and other objects and measure their movements. Predicting and understanding the movement of objects in orbit Earth is really important, as it can prevent future collisions. I hope you all enjoyed this tour of our beautiful science spaces here at RMIT. And remember, if you have any other questions, feel free to reach out to our super friendly staff at Study at RMIT. We hope to see you soon. Bye-bye.
Hello again. I hope that's given you an opportunity to see at least some of the tremendous facilities we have at RMIT. What I'd like to do now is to take some of the questions which you've been posting on the chat from our audience. I'm going to start off with a question for Peter. How interdisciplinary and flexible are the science courses which we're offering at RMIT?
So most of our programs have defined plans, which means that you work on core courses within your discipline, but you have the option of taking some electives that allow you to work outside your discipline. And we also have very, very interdisciplinary researchers at RMIT in science. So when you do your science project or an honours project or anything like that, it's highly likely that you'll be doing a very much an interdisciplinary research project.
Thank you very much, Peter. Second question, which I'm going to ask to all of you. I'll start off with Daniel in relation to this. What are your thoughts on how technology is impacting upon the science sector?
So the impact is quite significant. So here we are, for example, today. Technology is enabling us to continue to do scientific discoveries from our homes, sort of. In addition to that, or in particular in my field, technological developments include control over electron flow, which allows us to create new structures for harvesting sunlight. So I also like to stress that it's both, the relationship goes both ways. Scientific discoveries also have a great technological impact.
Thank you, Daniel. I think we've seen that in relation to some of the work which has been going on in COVID in relation to the development of technologies, for example, for the delivery of drugs into human systems. We've seen the combination of that in relation to the so-called mRNA vaccines. And that really just shows the power of pure science to then provide practical solutions. Sylvia, could you perhaps give us your thoughts in relation to how technology is impacting and improving the science sector?
I think you mentioned a lot of the things I was thinking as well. How COVID, a very topical area as well. But I just think that, like even what Daniel said, that they go hand in hand. With advances in technology comes advances in science. And so we're always, it's just a continual advance. But AI, I'd say it's a great motivation for this Science Reimagined, having that course. AI is the future, I think. So that's a technology that I think we need to embrace. It's going to be part of our lives.
Thank you, Sylvia. And Peter, perhaps from a physics perspective, what are your thoughts on how technology impacts science?
Well, my interest is in computational physics, and the increase in computing power that we've seen over my lifetime in science, has been absolutely incredible. So there are things that we can compute now that would have been impossible, say, even 5 or 10 years ago. And these things are changing the way we do physics very, very rapidly.
Thank you very much, Peter. I've got a question. We're obviously, as we've just been talking about, in the midst of the pandemic, and we have many challenges, even actually leaving our own homes as we are at the moment in relation to the lockdowns, both here in Victoria and then in other countries around the world. But looking to the future, Daniel, once these borders are reopening, can you tell us a bit about what students will be able to do when they go on exchange or have opportunities to do study overseas?
For sure. So I think one has to bear in mind that RMIT has a campus in Vietnam and also a strong presence in Europe. So that those are two sort of given opportunities for our students to go overseas and experience what it's like to learn from colleagues across the world. We also offer field activities that involve studying in Fiji in terms of environmental impacts and plastic contamination in water. We also do food biotechnology in Vietnam, and also locally here in Australia, we also study the environmental impacts on the life of the Great Barrier Reef.
Thank you very much, Daniel. And I'd stress that RMIT has a whole series of collaborations with universities around the world, which allow students to go and study for a semester or a year at another university as a partnership. So there are lots of opportunities for going global, and they're providing that opportunity not just to study science in another country, but also to immerse yourself when you're actually visiting these countries and understand more about the culture and the environments within those countries. Thinking also about opportunities for students. Again, during COVID, it's very difficult to think about how you're able to interact with students. But one of the things which is really important are providing those opportunities to allow collaboration and interaction between students who have similar interests. We have another question from the audience in relation to student clubs at RMIT. Sylvia, could you perhaps just tell us a little bit about the student clubs which are present at RMIT?
There are obviously a whole variety from the underwater or dive club to many other sporting areas. And I think the redbacks are pretty famous as well. But in terms of science, absolutely, we do have science societies. Chemistry has one. Physics has another society, so you can join those and get, a sense that you belong to your particular discipline.
We've also, within those science clubs, been actively supporting them as academics and working with our industry partners to provide career events for our students. So we've been helping the students to both connect with industry and actually run those events themselves. So just as we're having a discussion here today between us as academics, our students are actually working within our industry partners and having discussions with them about how to forge and generate a successful career. So if you come to RMIT, certainly, of course, join us in studies, but also look for those opportunities to add value to your CV, to provide leadership opportunities, and also as a mechanism of networking, both with other students, but also those opportunities, as we were talking about and as Sylvia highlighted previously, in relation to the importance of networking for developing your careers. I have a question in relation to the entry to do ultimately a Doctor of Veterinary Medicine. This is a very specific question. If you've been majoring in biological sciences, I might take that question myself. So can you enter a Doctor of Veterinary Medicine from this course if you've majored in biological sciences? The biology program which we're offering within RMIT in terms of the Bachelor of Science and the major of biology will provide you with the key foundations which you'll be needing to be successful in biosciences. That would certainly allow you to then be applying for a Doctor of Veterinary Medicine, although that's quite specific, and I would encourage you to be looking for advice from the university which offers those programs as to what their prerequisites are. Certainly we'd be able to provide you with a really strong foundation in relation to biological sciences, but do, if you're interested in that particular future program, reach out to the universities which are offering those doctorates to seek advice in terms of what their requirements are. Great question for the next one, which I'm going to invite everyone to be answering, is what were some of the unexpected challenges along your career paths, and how did you overcome them? Peter, I'll throw to you first.
Wow, that's a really interesting question. I probably was very late to get started on a PhD. I had a lot of doubt about my ability to do it, and I wasn't sure whether I really wanted to do that. And so I did mess around for a little while before I really got started properly on my scientific career. But I'm so glad I made the right decision. And like Sylvia, actually, I did my undergrad degree and, in fact, a master's degree at RMIT. Took a couple of years after that to sort of figure out what I wanted to do next. And then out of the blue, I got a fantastic offer to take a graduate assistantship at Massey University in Palmerston North in New Zealand. So I did my PhD there, and it was the best decision I ever made.
Thank you very much, Peter. And knowing Peter quite well, when he talks about messing around, I can't actually see that, but I'm sure he had a great time earlier on. Daniel, what would you say is perhaps some of the unexpected challenges and perhaps how you solve those along your career path?
I think that for me, the one that I remember the most was that my research area led me to needing some particular skills that I did not have. And this is work in clean rooms, which is where computer chips are manufactured. But then there was a scientific need for me to learn how to work in those environments and all of those techniques. And I had to do this on a very limited amount of time because of the project duration and its associated funding. So that required me to sort of put on my student hat again and just go through the learning process to get to the skills required for me to deliver the outcomes of the project.
Thank you very much, Daniel. And last but not least on this question, Sylvia, can you tell us a little about some perhaps the unexpected challenges and how you've addressed those?
It's interesting. I think as the only female here, I better mention it's not an unexpected, it's an expected challenge. It's important, I think, to voice for females that, I took 2 periods of maternity leave. And that definitely presents a challenge. It can set your career not backwards, but yeah. So what I did is advocate for better opportunities for the future for women, and in the School of Science, for instance, asked for the provision of return to work grants, reduced teaching to half load. So that's that. Unexpected, I suppose. I was quite confident that I wanted to get a research analytical type of chemist position when I finished my studies. But in fact, I did so well in honours that, when I was going to interviews, people saying, well, what are you doing? Why aren't you doing a PhD? So that was a really, really difficult decision for me because it meant that I would be embarking on another 4 years of study. That's not a decision to be taken lightly. And I thought, well, will I actually become so overqualified that I won't even get a job after all of that? But it turned out to be a great decision. A great career choice. And I guess one of the things I see there is a question about what excites you about science and things. And for me, I guess pre-COVID world is the opportunities that science has created for me to work for a month in Spain for a pharmaceutical company, to travel the world, to give conferences about your research and so forth. So, and my job, I'd have to say, I've got one of the best jobs for sure. You know, I've got the teaching side and I've got the research side. No day's the same, even when I'm stuck at home like this, that it is just an exciting and just a wonderful job to have.
That's brilliant to hear, and I know your enthusiasm and passion for your research and also your teaching. It's in everything you do. That excitement and love about science, I think, is just so important, and I hope some of that has been coming across today. I'd really like to hear more from perhaps Peter and Daniel in relation to what you love, Peter, about science, and perhaps who inspired you along the way to be where you are today.
Wow, well, I guess the thing that I really love is the fact that you can actually predict things. You know, that's to me still a bit miraculous, that you can compute or predict things and actually get the right answer if you do it right. And as far as inspiration goes, well, you know, from historical scientists, I think Max Born is just amazing. Everything I read by him is inspiring, and as far as people I've known, I'd have to say Ian Snook, who was my mentor here at RMIT, and he mentored me over many years as a postgrad student, but also when I returned to RMIT as a staff member, he was a great mentor then.
Thank you very much, Peter. And hearing the inspiration from other academics at RMIT, I think that's so true. We are all inspired by the people who have taught us, and we're looking to learn from them, and to them very often be encouraged by them to actually be successful in our careers. Daniel, what do you love most about science, and who again inspired you along the way?
Well, I'm a very curious person, so to me, science is the perfect sort of playground to explore my curiosity. And in particular, I share the views that Peter was talking about, that the power of predicting using sort of some mathematical tools to predict the outcome of an experiment, and seeing that agreement is just very satisfying. In terms of the inspiration or guidance, I think could mention all the mentors that I have had the pleasure to have, and that includes all my teachers and also my PhD supervisors and all the people that have mentored me throughout the career. So without naming specific people, it's these interactions that you will go through when you enroll at RMIT that will help you shape your views, and it will inspire you to become a scientist.
I may take the liberty, thank you very much, Daniel. I may take the liberty of also just answering that question myself and providing a personal perspective. I think for me, what science is about is that joy of discovery and learning. In our roles, even now, we are learning on a daily basis. We're learning how to communicate via platforms such as this. We're learning how to improve our abilities to support you as students. We're learning all the time from our research students about the exciting things which they're discovering within their science. And I really, when I'm thinking about who's inspired me along the way, well, I go to my honours project supervisor, Professor Anne Moyer, who was at the University of Sheffield in the UK, where I studied. And Anne was a meticulous scientist working on the germination of bacteria, the ability for bacteria to recover from a spore, a state of a suspended animation as a spore. And what she was doing was deconstructing the molecular processes and understanding the genetics behind that process. And the passion which Anne brought to it, but also the ability of Anne to allow her to support her students and to really introduce us and provide us with those skills has made such a difference to my career in enabling me to think, well, if I can do at least even half of what Anne did in terms of supporting my career for our students, and what we want to be doing as our academics is to be doing the same for you as you join RMIT. So I really want to perhaps just to conclude on that question, I thank everyone in the audience who has addressed questions today. Apologies we've not got through all of them today, but I hope this session has been of benefit to you. And really just to return to our original theme, which is to be thinking about science reimagined. What we are doing is reimagining our degree programs to be providing you with the opportunities to be successful in your future careers, hopefully to be inspired to learn about science, but also to study science and bring science to the communities around you. We see that it's so important in relation to so many aspects of our lives. Clearly, some of those we are being pressured to consider in relation to factors in our lives such as COVID and climate change, which are going to be ongoing pressures. But there are also so many different opportunities within science, and we really want to be welcoming you to RMIT to be joining our community here. That's all we have time for today, but thank you so much for joining us. Please remember to check out the other live sessions which we'll have on our Open Day platform. And then we also have a main online event which will be on Sunday, August the 29th, where you can learn more about our science degree programs and ask more questions. And we really look forward to welcoming you both to those events and hopefully to joining us at RMIT for your studies, for your future careers. Thank you very much and good evening.